Most relationships don't end because of betrayal. They end because of silence, because of things left unsaid, because of pain left unspoken. Sometimes two people can sleep in the same bed, yet feel miles apart. Have you ever loved someone deeply and still felt them slipping away? Have you ever wondered when the laughter stopped and the silence began? Tonight's story is about love, pride, pain, and second chances. Ryan Mitchell thought he was coming home to another quiet birthday. He had no idea that one moment would change everything. Because when he opened his bedroom door that night, he froze. His wife, Zariah, was lying in bed, wearing nothing except a fiery smile. But what happened next had nothing to do with seduction. It had everything to do with truth. Most marriages don't end because of cheating. They don't collapse because of one explosive fight. And they rarely break because love disappears overnight. No, most relationships die quietly, in silence, in routines, in missed conversations, in the little moments that seem harmless at first. A forgotten dinner, an unanswered text, a painful conversation postponed for another day, then another and another, until one day, two people who once couldn't live without each other suddenly feel like strangers sharing the same space. Tell me something. Have you ever loved someone deeply, yet somehow felt them slipping away? Have you ever sat beside someone you cared about and wondered when things changed? When the laughter became silence? When warmth turned cold? When home stopped feeling like home? Tonight's story is about love, but not the easy kind. This is a story about silence, pride, pain, and the small decisions that quietly shape our lives in ways we don't realize until it's almost too late. It's about a husband who thought he was walking into another ordinary birthday night. He was wrong. Because what waited for him behind that bedroom door would force both him and his wife to confront truths they had spent years avoiding. And by the end of this story, you may never look at love the same way again. Welcome back to Love Stories by Mr. Johnson. If you're new here, welcome. This channel is where we share emotional love stories filled with real-life lessons about relationships, trust, healing, and second chances. If stories like this speak to your heart, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next story. And as you listen tonight, I want you to think about this question. Can love survive when two people stop communicating? Let's begin. Ryan Mitchell stared blankly at the glowing numbers on his laptop screen. 6:43 p.m. He rubbed his eyes and leaned back in his chair, feeling the weight of the day pressing into his shoulders like concrete. The office around him had mostly emptied out. A few desks still glowed under fluorescent lights, but the lively energy from earlier had long disappeared. Now all that remained was silence. Cold, sharp, unforgiving. Ryan exhaled slowly. Another long day. Another exhausting meeting. Another endless stream of deadlines. As senior operations manager at one of Chicago's largest logistics firms, pressure came with the territory. He was used to carrying responsibility, used to fixing problems, used to being dependable. Everyone relied on Ryan. At work, that made him valuable. At home, he wasn't sure what it made him anymore. He glanced at his phone, lying beside his laptop. 7 unread messages. His younger sister, Claire, 2 college friends, 3 work chats, 1 message from his mother. No message from Zariah. Ryan picked up the phone and stared at the screen for another second. Still nothing. No text. No call. No happy birthday. His jaw tightened. He placed the phone back down. Maybe she was busy. Maybe she forgot. Or maybe, no. He stopped himself there. He hated where his thoughts had started going lately. That dangerous place where disappointment slowly turns into resentment. Ryan closed the laptop. His reflection stared back at him in the darkened screen. 37 years old today. Funny. Birthdays used to feel exciting. Now they felt strange. Heavy. Like quiet reminders of time passing. Of routines hardening. Of things changing. He stood and grabbed his coat. As he made his way toward the elevator, memories surfaced uninvited. Birthdays with Zariah used to be different. She used to make them special. Not expensive. Not extravagant. Just meaningful. One year she surprised him with homemade dinner and candles all over their apartment. Another year she planned a weekend getaway. One year she gave him a handwritten letter. He still remembered every word. "You are my safest place." That line had stayed with him, because nobody had ever called him that before, not even growing up. Especially not growing up. Ryan stepped into the elevator and pressed the lobby button. The doors closed. Silence. He hated silence these days. Because silence gave thoughts too much room to breathe. The elevator descended, and with every floor, the heaviness inside his chest grew. He and Zariah hadn't really been okay for a long time. No explosive fights. No betrayal. Nothing dramatic. That was the strange part. From the outside, they looked fine. Successful couple. Beautiful home in Chicago. Stable careers. 7 years of marriage. People admired them. People envied them. But nobody saw what was happening underneath. Nobody saw how conversations had grown shorter. How laughter had become rare. How long silences now lived comfortably between them. It didn't happen overnight. That was what scared Ryan most. Distance had arrived quietly. Slowly. Like winter. One day, you look around and realize everything is cold. The elevator doors opened. Ryan walked into the lobby and stepped outside. Rain greeted him instantly. Chicago's evening air was cold and damp. Streetlights reflected against wet pavement. Cars moved in long, glowing streaks. He paused under the building awning and stared into the rain. His phone buzzed. Claire, he answered. Hey. Happy birthday, old man. A small smile touched his lips. Thanks. You sound tired. Long day. Claire was quiet for a moment. Then she asked softly, You okay? Ryan looked out at the rain. That question, simple, dangerous. Because the honest answer, he didn't know. I'm fine. Claire sighed. You always say that. He said nothing. She lowered her voice. How are things with Zariah? Ryan closed his eyes briefly. Even Claire noticed. That said, enough. We're okay. Another lie. Claire didn't challenge it. She simply said, I love you, Ryan. He swallowed. Love you too. After hanging up, he stood there a little longer. Rain fell steadily. Cold against the city. Then Ryan walked toward his car. As he drove home through wet Chicago streets, something heavy settled in his chest. Not anger, not exactly sadness. Something quieter, something harder to name. Disappointment, exhaustion, loneliness. He tightened his grip on the steering wheel. He hated admitting it. But lately, home no longer felt like peace. Sometimes it felt like walking into emotional fog. You could sense the distance, feel the tension, but neither person knew how to clear it. His phone remained silent on the passenger seat. Still nothing from Zariah. Ryan laughed bitterly under his breath. Maybe this birthday would be just like everything else lately. Quiet, routine, forgettable. But deep down, something felt different tonight, and Ryan had no idea that before this night ended, everything would change. Rain followed Ryan Mitchell all the way home. By the time he pulled into the driveway, the windshield wipers were moving in a tired rhythm that somehow matched the exhaustion inside his chest. Back and forth, like the cycle his marriage had quietly fallen into. Routine, distance, silence, repeat. Ryan turned off the engine but didn't get out immediately. He sat there, hands resting on the steering wheel, staring at the warm lights glowing behind the windows of his house. From the outside, it looked peaceful, beautiful even. A 2-story home tucked into a quiet Chicago neighborhood, neatly trimmed lawn, soft porch lights, a place people would call dream-worthy. But Ryan had learned something painful over the years. A beautiful house meant nothing if peace no longer lived inside it. He exhaled slowly and glanced at his phone one last time. Still nothing. No message from Zariah. No missed call. No birthday text. He swallowed the sting and stepped out into the rain. Cold drops hit his coat as he walked to the front door. The moment he reached for his keys, something felt strange. The porch light was on. That wasn't unusual. But the house felt different. Too still. Too quiet. Ryan unlocked the door and stepped inside. Silence greeted him. Not the comforting kind. The unsettling kind. He closed the door behind him and listened. Nothing. No television. No music. No sound from the kitchen. No soft humming from Zariah while she cooked. Just silence. Ryan frowned. Zariah? No response. He loosened his tie, dropped his keys into the bowl near the door. Still silence. A strange heaviness settled in his stomach. He moved toward the kitchen. Empty. Counters spotless. No dinner. No candles. No sign of anything special. Of course. Why had part of him still hoped? He laughed softly to himself. Not because anything was funny. Because disappointment had become so familiar that sometimes all you could do was laugh. Ryan leaned against the kitchen counter and closed his eyes. This was ridiculous. He was 37 years old. Why did a birthday even matter this much? Why did one missed message hurt so badly? Because it wasn't about the birthday. And he knew it. It was about everything the silence represented. Every ignored conversation. Every unresolved hurt. Every growing space between him and the woman he still loved. That was what hurt. Ryan pushed away from the counter and headed toward the stairs. Maybe Zariah was asleep. Maybe she had a rough day. Maybe there was a perfectly reasonable explanation. Still, something in his chest felt uneasy. Each step upstairs felt heavier. The house remained painfully quiet. Ryan reached the bedroom door. His hand rested on the knob, and for one strange second, his heartbeat shifted. Something felt off. Something felt different. He opened the door and froze. His entire body stopped moving. For a second, his brain couldn't process what he was seeing. The bedroom glowed under soft golden light from the lamps. Warm, intimate, the usual cold emptiness of the room had disappeared. Candles flickered softly on the dresser. The air smelled faintly of vanilla and jasmine. And on the bed, Zariah. She lay against white sheets, bare shoulders glowing under warm light, dark curls spilling across her skin. Beautiful, still, completely focused on him. Ryan's breath caught. She wasn't wearing anything, nothing, except a smile. A fiery smile. Not soft, not playful, not seductive in the usual way. This smile carried something deeper, something intense, something nervous, something almost dangerous. It was the smile of a woman who had made a decision and refused to back down. Ryan stared at her, unable to move, unable to speak. His pulse thundered in his ears. Zariah. Her eyes held his, steady, but he knew her, really knew her. Beneath that confidence, he saw it. The nervousness, the fear, the vulnerability. She sat up slowly, pulling the sheet lightly over herself. Her gaze never left his. Then she spoke. "Happy birthday." Her voice was calm, but there was tension underneath it. Ryan swallowed hard. He was still trying to make sense of the moment. An hour ago, he was convinced she forgot his birthday. Now this made no sense. What is this? Zariah held his gaze. For a brief second, the fiery confidence in her expression flickered, then returned. "This," she said quietly, "is me trying." Ryan frowned. Trying? Trying to do what? Save the night? Save the marriage? He didn't know. And somehow, that uncertainty frightened him more than anything. His voice came out rough. "Zariah?" She interrupted him. "No." Her voice remained calm, controlled, but firm. "Please, let me talk first." Ryan said nothing. The room suddenly felt smaller, warmer, too intimate, too charged. Zariah took a slow breath. Then she said the words that made Ryan's chest tighten. "We need to talk." Just 4 words. But they hit like a storm. Ryan felt his body tense, instantly. Of course this wasn't about seduction. Of course, this wasn't just romance. This was something else. Something bigger. Something heavier. His guard went up. What kind of talk? Her eyes softened. The fiery smile disappeared completely now. What remained was raw honesty. The kind we've been avoiding for years. Silence. Ryan looked away briefly, jaw tightening. He hated this already, because deep down, he knew she was right. Zariah's voice grew quieter, but more vulnerable. "I didn't do this to seduce you." Ryan looked back at her. She continued, "I did this because I needed you to stop." A lump formed in Ryan's throat. She looked straight into him now. No walls, no pride, no pretending. "I needed you to actually look at me." That landed harder than he expected. Ryan's chest tightened painfully. Zariah's eyes shimmered, not with tears yet, just emotion, heavy emotion. "When was the last time you really saw me, Ryan?" He said nothing. She gave a small, broken laugh. "That's the problem." Silence filled the room. But this silence felt different. Not empty, not numb. This silence felt sharp, alive, dangerous. Ryan finally spoke. "What are you saying?" Zariah's voice cracked slightly, and this time he heard it. The pain, raw and undeniable. "I'm saying I miss my husband." The words sliced straight through him. She shook her head. "I miss us." Ryan's breathing slowed. Every defense mechanism inside him activated, because this conversation was heading somewhere painful, somewhere unavoidable. Zariah's voice trembled now. "You're here every day." She touched her chest. "But emotionally, you've been gone." Ryan's jaw tightened. "That's not fair." Her eyes flashed. For the first time, fire returned. Not playful fire. Painful fire. "No?" She stared at him. "When was the last time we actually talked?" Ryan opened his mouth. Closed it. She continued. "When was the last time we laughed together?" Silence. "When was the last time you touched me without me feeling like you were somewhere else in your head?" That one hit hard. Ryan looked away, because he didn't have answers. Only uncomfortable truths. Zariah inhaled shakily and whispered, "I feel alone in this marriage." Ryan froze. That sentence broke something open inside him, because he had felt the exact same thing. And somehow, that made it worse, much worse, because if they both felt alone, how had they gotten this far apart? And, more importantly, was there still a way back? Before we continue, I want to hear from you. Have you ever been in a relationship where the person you loved was right beside you, yet emotionally far away? Have you ever felt alone while still being with someone? If you've experienced that kind of silence, comment below. Silence hurts. And tell me, do you think Ryan and Zariah can save this marriage? Also, if this story is already touching your heart, please like this video and subscribe to Love Stories by Mr. Johnson for more powerful love stories with real-life lessons. Sometimes, the most painful loneliness isn't being alone. It's being with someone you love and still feeling invisible. Ryan Mitchell stood frozen near the bedroom door. Zariah's words still hung heavily in the air. "I feel alone in this marriage." The sentence echoed in his mind, over and over again. He looked at his wife, really looked at her. For a moment, the room disappeared. No candles, no warm lighting, no birthday, no carefully planned setup. Just two people, two exhausted people, standing at the edge of something fragile, something dangerous, something painfully honest. Ryan swallowed. His throat felt tight. His voice came out lower than he expected. "You feel alone?" Zariah stared at him. A humorless smile touched her lips. "That's what you heard?" Ryan frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" Her expression shifted. Pain mixed with frustration. "It means, I just opened my heart to you, Ryan. And somehow, you still sound defensive." Ryan's jaw tightened. He hated that word. Defensive, because it was true. And he hated even more that she noticed. He slowly removed his coat and placed it on the chair near the window, buying himself a few seconds, trying to steady his thoughts, trying to keep this from turning into another argument. But tension was already thick between them. Heavy. Electric. Zariah watched him carefully, waiting. Ryan finally spoke. "You think you feel alone?" The moment the words left his mouth, he regretted the tone. Zariah's eyes hardened. There it was. The familiar shift. Pain turning into defense. Emotion turning into battle. She crossed her arms. "What does that mean?" Ryan exhaled sharply. "It means, you're not the only one hurting here." Silence. The air changed instantly. Zariah's expression softened slightly. Not because she agreed, because she wasn't expecting that answer. Ryan rubbed his face with both hands. Exhaustion crashed into him all at once. The emotional exhaustion. The kind he had buried under work, under routine, under silence. His voice dropped. Quiet now. Raw. "I feel alone too." That landed. Zariah blinked. Her anger flickered. Confusion replaced it. Ryan laughed bitterly. A small, broken sound. "Funny, isn't it?" He shook his head. "We're in the same house." His voice cracked with quiet frustration. "We sleep in the same bed." He looked at her. "And somehow, we both feel alone." The truth of that hit the room like thunder, because neither of them could deny it. Neither. Zariah slowly uncrossed her arms. Her expression softened. Not warm, but less guarded. Ryan moved toward the window. Rain tapped softly against the glass. The city lights blurred beyond the storm. He stared outside, because looking at her felt too hard right now. Too vulnerable. He spoke quietly. "When did this happen?" Zariah didn't answer immediately, because there was no simple answer. That was the problem. There wasn't one big moment, no obvious disaster, no affair, no betrayal, no explosion. Just life, stress, routine, unspoken pain. And 1,000 little moments, neither of them addressed. Zariah's voice came softly. "It didn't happen all at once." Ryan closed his eyes. He already knew that. That was what made it worse. Things that break suddenly can sometimes be fixed quickly. But this kind of damage was slow, layered, complicated. Ryan turned to face her. "What happened to us, Zariah?" That question shattered something inside her, because she had asked herself that same question countless nights. Nights lying beside him, wide awake, feeling the distance, feeling the silence, feeling invisible. Her voice trembled. "We stopped choosing each other." Ryan said nothing. She continued. "Not all at once." Tears gathered now, but she kept going. It happened in small ways. She looked down briefly, then back at him. "You got busier. I got quieter. We stopped talking. We stopped listening." Ryan felt every word. Because every word was true. Painfully true. Zoraya's eyes glistened. You know what hurts the most? Ryan remained still. She answered anyway. I can't even remember the last time we had a real conversation. Silence. Her voice cracked. Not about bills. Not about work. Not about groceries. She pressed her hand against her chest. I mean a real conversation. Emotion tightened her voice. One where I felt like my husband actually saw me. Ryan looked away. That hurt. Because he wanted to argue. Wanted to defend himself. Wanted to say he was trying. Working hard. Providing. Showing up. But deep down, he knew something uncomfortable. Providing wasn't the same as connecting. Being physically present wasn't the same as being emotionally available. And maybe that was the truth he had been avoiding. Zoraya wiped a tear. Then another. I miss you. 3 words. Simple. Devastating. Ryan's chest tightened painfully. She looked broken now. Raw. Exposed. I miss the man who used to ask me how I was doing and actually cared about the answer. Ryan swallowed hard. I miss the man who used to laugh with me. Her voice shook. I miss the man who made me feel safe. That word hit him hard. Safe. Because once, that was exactly who he had been for her. Or at least, who he thought he was. So when had that changed? When had he become someone she no longer felt safe with emotionally? Ryan finally spoke. Quiet. Barely above a whisper. I didn't realize it got this bad. Zoraya stared at him. Hurt flashed across her face. Then came the painful response. That's exactly the problem, Ryan. That's exactly the problem, Ryan. Zoraya's voice was quiet, but every word landed with painful precision. Ryan stood still. Her eyes held his now. No fire, no anger, just hurt. Deep, exhausted hurt. The kind that had been buried for too long. She slowly adjusted the sheet around herself and moved to the edge of the bed. The room suddenly felt different. Less like a bedroom. More like a battlefield where years of unspoken emotions were finally demanding to be heard. Ryan's heartbeat felt heavy. Unsteady. He hated this feeling. This raw exposure. This helplessness. Because for years, Ryan had built his life around control. Control at work. Control over emotions. Control over problems. If something broke, he fixed it. If something went wrong, he handled it. But this? He couldn't solve this with logic. Couldn't fix it with efficiency. Couldn't organize it into neat solutions. Because this wasn't about tasks. This was about feelings. Messy, painful, human feelings. And feelings had never been Ryan's strength. Zoraya spoke again. You didn't realize it got this bad. She gave a small, bitter laugh. That sentence alone says everything. Ryan's jaw tightened. I'm here now. Her eyes flashed. Are you? The question cut deep. Ryan frowned. What is that supposed to mean? Zoraya stood from the bed. Now wrapped in the sheet, she looked both powerful and vulnerable at the same time. She stepped closer. Not aggressively, but intentionally. She needed him to hear this. Really hear it. You're physically here, Ryan. She touched her chest. But, emotionally? Her voice cracked. You've been gone for a long time. Ryan inhaled sharply. That's not fair. The moment he said it, frustration spilled into his voice. Zoraya's expression changed. Hurt hardened into pain. Then into anger. No? She stared directly at him. You want to talk about fair? Her voice rose slightly. Let's talk about fair. Ryan felt tension spike. He recognized this moment. This was where conversations usually broke, where pain turned into arguments, where both of them retreated into defense. But tonight felt different, because neither of them could run anymore. Zoraya folded her arms tightly, as if holding herself together. You know what's unfair? Her voice shook. Spending years trying to tell your husband you're hurting. Tears filled her eyes, and realizing he never truly heard you. Ryan froze. He opened his mouth, closed it, because no defense came, no excuse felt strong enough. Zoraya laughed bitterly, a wounded laugh. Do you know how lonely that feels? She shook her head. No, you probably don't. Ryan's voice came out lower. Stop. Her eyes narrowed. Stop what? Talking like I don't care. The pain in his voice surprised both of them. Ryan's composure cracked slightly. His voice sharpened. You think I don't care? He stepped forward now, emotion finally surfacing. You think this has been easy for me? Zoraya blinked. Ryan rarely raised his voice, rarely showed this much emotion. His chest rose and fell heavily. I work every day to provide for us. His voice cracked. To build a life for us. I carry pressure you don't even see. Zariah stared, not angry, listening. Ryan's walls were cracking now. Words poured out. Messy, unfiltered, human. I come home exhausted. I'm stressed all the time. I feel like I'm drowning half the time. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration radiating. But I keep going. His voice lowered, because now came the real truth, the one buried under everything else. And, lately, he swallowed. His eyes met hers. I feel like nothing I do is enough. Silence, heavy silence. Zariah's anger softened, just slightly, because she heard something new. Pain, not defense. Pain. Ryan laughed bitterly. Broken. I'm failing at work. His voice dropped. I'm failing at home. He shook his head. And somehow, I'm still standing here being told I disappeared. Zariah's breathing slowed. Something shifted. For the first time tonight, she saw the exhaustion underneath his silence. Really saw it. But pain still remained. Because understanding pain didn't erase hurt. Her voice softened. But only a little. Ryan. Well, tears slipped down her cheeks. I never said you weren't trying. She wiped her face. I said, I stopped feeling chosen. That sentence hit harder than anything else. Ryan froze. Completely still. The words echoed. I stopped feeling chosen. Zariah's voice broke completely now. That's the truth. Her pride was gone. Only raw honesty remained. I stopped feeling like I mattered. Ryan's chest tightened painfully. She looked shattered, vulnerable, exposed. For years she had carried this. Alone. You used to choose me. Her voice trembled. You used to make me feel important. Her tears fell freely now. You used to see me. She pressed her hand against her heart. And, somewhere along the way, her voice cracked. I stopped feeling that. Ryan couldn't breathe properly, because deep inside, he knew exactly what she meant. And worse, a painful memory began surfacing. One night, one decision, one moment. A moment he thought was small. A moment he barely remembered. But suddenly, the look in Zariah's eyes told him something terrifying. That moment mattered. A lot. And somehow, it had changed everything. Ryan's voice came out almost as a whisper. What happened? Zariah stared at him. Pain, sadness, disappointment. All of it lived in her eyes. Then she said, quietly, You really don't remember, do you? Ryan's stomach dropped, because suddenly, he realized whatever came next was about to change everything. Most relationships don't shatter in one dramatic moment. They crack, quietly, slowly, in ways almost impossible to notice while they're happening. And that's what makes small cracks dangerous. Because small cracks don't feel urgent. They feel manageable, harmless, temporary, until one day, you look at what you built together and realize the damage runs deeper than you ever imagined. Ryan stood frozen. Zariah's question echoed painfully in his mind. You really don't remember, do you? He searched her face, tried to remember, tried to find the moment she was talking about. But all he felt was growing unease. His voice was careful now. Quiet. What am I supposed to remember? Zariah stared at him, and what hurt her most wasn't anger anymore. It was disappointment, deep disappointment, because the fact that he couldn't remember told her everything. The moment that changed her life, barely registered in his. She gave a slow nod, as if confirming something painful to herself. Of course. Ryan frowned. Zariah, stop. Just tell me. Her eyes glistened, but her voice stayed controlled. You want to know what happened to us? She folded her arms. I'll tell you. She took a slow breath. It wasn't one big thing. Ryan remained silent. She continued. It was little things. Her voice softened. The little things you stopped noticing. The room grew quiet again. Not empty. Heavy. Filled with memories neither of them could avoid anymore. Zariah looked down briefly, then began. It started small. Her voice sounded far away now, like she was replaying years of hurt. Missed dinners. Flash. Ryan walking into the house at 10:30 p.m., exhausted, loosening his tie, finding Zariah asleep on the couch. Dinner cold on the table. Waiting. Again. It was cancelled plans. Flash. Saturday morning. Zariah smiling as she packed for their weekend trip. Ryan's phone ringing. Work emergency. His face changing. Her smile fading. Trip cancelled. Again. It was interrupted conversations. Flash. Zariah speaking passionately about her day. Ryan nodding absent-mindedly while checking emails. barely listening, barely present. It was forgotten promises. Flash. Ryan saying, "I promise next week will be better." Then, next week came. Nothing changed. Then, another week. And another. And another. Ryan felt his chest tighten with every memory. Because none of those moments felt catastrophic. None felt relationship ending. They felt normal. Busy life. Stress. Responsibilities. Adult problems. That was the dangerous part. Individually, they looked small. Together, they became distance. Zariah's voice cracked slightly. "You kept thinking things would slow down." Ryan said nothing. She looked at him. But they never did. He lowered his eyes. Because she was right. There was always another deadline, another emergency, another responsibility, always something demanding more of him. He had told himself it was temporary. That once work settled down, he'd be more present. A better husband, more available. But work never slowed. And years passed. Zariah's voice grew quieter. "Do you know what hurt the most?" Ryan looked at her. She swallowed. It wasn't even the missed dinners. It wasn't the cancelled plans. It wasn't the long hours. Her eyes filled with tears again. It was feeling like I always came second. That landed hard. Ryan's heart sank. Zariah continued. "Work needed you? You went. Someone called? You answered. Something happened at the office. Everything else stopped." She touched her chest. "But when I needed you..." Her voice broke. Ryan's stomach tightened. Because now, he felt it. The memory. Still blurry. But closer. Something important was surfacing. Zariah wiped her tears. Then said quietly, "I kept making excuses for you." Her laugh was broken. Sad. "I defended you to everyone." She shook her head. "My friends said you were emotionally unavailable. I said they were wrong. My mother said marriage shouldn't feel lonely." Her voice cracked. "I told her. She didn't understand you." Ryan felt shame rising inside him. Hot, heavy, unavoidable. Zariah had protected him, defended him, believed in him, even while hurting. And somehow, he still hadn't seen the damage. She stared directly at him now. Pain raw in her expression. "Do you know when I started changing?" Ryan barely breathed. She answered, "The day I stopped asking." He frowned. "What?" Her tears fell freely now. "The day I stopped asking you to choose me." Silence. Devastating silence. She smiled sadly. "At first I asked." Her voice trembled. "I asked for time. I asked for attention. I asked for connection." She shook her head. "Then I stopped." Ryan's chest tightened painfully. Because he understood. Really understood. That kind of silence wasn't peace. It was surrender. Zariah wasn't okay. She had simply stopped hoping. And somehow, that realization terrified Ryan. Because when someone stops fighting for connection, it means something inside them is breaking. Her voice lowered to almost a whisper. That's when things changed. Ryan looked at her. His voice felt weak. "Why didn't you tell me?" Zariah stared at him. Pain turned to disbelief. Then she gave him the most heartbreaking answer yet. "I did, Ryan." She held his gaze. For years. A tear rolled down her cheek. "You just didn't hear me." Ryan felt like the air had been punched out of his lungs. Because he wanted to deny it. Wanted to defend himself. Wanted to argue. But deep down, he knew she was telling the truth. And then, the blurry memory sharpened. Suddenly, violently. A Thursday night. Rain. Her voice trembling on the phone. His office. A meeting. Her words. "Ryan, I need you." Ryan's eyes widened. His stomach dropped. No. No, not that night. Zariah saw recognition flash across his face. She knew. He remembered. Finally, her voice broke into a whisper. "Yes." She held his gaze. That night, Ryan's blood ran cold. Because now he remembered everything. And the worst part? He remembered exactly what he chose. Some decisions feel small when we make them. So small that we barely think twice. We tell ourselves we'll make up for it later. We tell ourselves it isn't that serious. We tell ourselves the people who love us will understand. And sometimes they do. But sometimes, that one decision leaves a wound deeper than we realize. A wound that quietly changes everything. Ryan felt his chest tighten as the memory returned in full. That night, 3 years ago, a Thursday. Cold rain against the office windows. A meeting scheduled with senior executives. One of the biggest presentations of his career. Everything came back. Clear. Painfully clear. His voice barely worked. "Oh God." Zariah didn't speak. She simply watched him. watched realization crash into him. Ryan ran both hands through his hair. His breathing became uneven. He remembered. He remembered everything. The office had been chaos that day. Emails flying, phones ringing, pressure everywhere. The promotion he'd spent years working toward was suddenly within reach. One presentation, one opportunity, one night, that felt career-defining. Then his phone rang. Zariah. He almost ignored it. Almost. But something made him answer. "Hey, babe. I'm in the middle of something." At first, there was silence. Then he heard her breathing. Uneven, shaky, and immediately something felt wrong. "Zariah?" Her voice came through trembling. "Ryan." Just hearing that memory now made his chest ache, because he remembered the fear in her voice. Raw fear. Not frustration. Not annoyance. Fear. "I need you." Ryan closed his eyes. The guilt hit hard. So hard. At the time, he remembered feeling torn. Alarmed. Concerned. But distracted. Too distracted. "What happened?" Her voice cracked. "I'm at the hospital." Ryan's heart pounded even in the memory. "What?" I collapsed at work." Silence. Then she broke. Completely. Her voice shaking with panic. "They said it's stress-related. They're running tests." She inhaled shakily. "I'm scared." Ryan felt sick, because he remembered exactly what came next. And he hated himself for it. At the time, he looked up. The conference room was filling. Senior leadership arriving. His boss already looking impatient. Everything collided at once. Career. Pressure. Fear. Responsibility. Decision. Ryan swallowed. His voice in the memory sounded calm. Too calm. Too controlled. Too practical. "Are you okay right now?" The moment he asked that, Zariah had gone quiet. A dangerous kind of quiet. Then she answered, "I don't know." Her voice cracked again. "I just need you here." Ryan felt the guilt burn deeper, because he remembered his next words. The words he thought made sense. The words he told himself were reasonable. Words that changed everything. "Can you give me an hour?" Silence. Dead silence. Ryan opened his eyes in the present. Pain all over his face. Zariah stood motionless, tears rolling quietly down her cheeks. She remembered every second too. Ryan's voice shook. "Zariah." But she continued. She needed him to hear all of it. All the pain. All the truth. "Do you remember what I said next?" Ryan couldn't speak. Because, yes, he remembered. Every word. Her voice in the memory was smaller now. Quieter. Broken. She had asked one simple question. One question that haunted him now. "You're not coming?" Ryan remembered closing his eyes. Feeling trapped. Feeling pressure from every side. His boss walking closer. Executives entering. His future on one side. His wife on the other. And he chose. God. He chose. He had lowered his voice, trying to sound gentle, trying to sound reasonable, trying to make her understand. "This meeting determines everything for me." He remembered saying it, and immediately feeling something shift, even through the phone. The silence changed. Her hurt became something colder, something quieter, and when she spoke again, her voice had changed. No panic, no emotion, just heartbreak. "Oh." One word. That was all. One word. Small, simple, devastating. Ryan felt tears sting unexpectedly. Because now, he understood. That "oh" wasn't agreement. It wasn't understanding. It was disappointment. Deep disappointment. It was the sound of someone realizing exactly where they stood in your life. Zariah's voice trembled in the present. "I wasn't asking you to fix anything." She wiped tears from her face. "I wasn't asking you to save me." She looked at him. Broken. "I just wanted my husband." Ryan's chest caved inward. Every word destroyed him. She continued. "That hospital room felt so cold." Her breathing shook. "I kept staring at the door." Tears streamed freely now. "Waiting for you." Ryan couldn't move, couldn't breathe properly. She smiled bitterly through tears. "Do you know when I stopped crying?" Ryan stood frozen. Her answer came quietly. "The moment I realized you weren't coming." Silence. Devastating silence. She touched her chest. "That's when something changed in me." Her voice cracked. "I stopped feeling safe." Ryan felt shattered. Completely shattered. Because for years, he had told himself she understood. That she forgave him. That they moved past it. But now, he saw the truth. They never moved past it. She simply carried the wound alone. And that wound became resentment. Quiet. Heavy. Growing. Year after year. Ryan's voice finally broke. Raw. Destroyed. I'm sorry. The words came out weak. Too small. Too late. Zariah closed her eyes. Tears falling. Then she whispered something that broke him completely. That's the first time you've apologized. Ryan froze. The room went silent. His entire body felt cold. Because her words revealed something horrifying. Not only had he failed her that night, he never truly acknowledged the damage afterward. Never apologized. Never took accountability. He had buried it. Moved on. Expected time to fix it. But time hadn't healed the wound. Silence had deepened it. And now Ryan was forced to face a painful truth. The marriage didn't begin breaking tonight. It began breaking the night his wife needed him most, and he didn't show up. Some pain doesn't scream. It whispers. It settles quietly in the heart. And over time, it changes the way you love. It changes the way you trust. It changes the way you see the person beside you. Because once trust cracks, even love begins to feel different. Ryan stood motionless. Zariah's words still echoed through the room. That's the first time you've apologized. Those words hit harder than anything else she had said tonight. Not because he didn't feel guilty, but because she was right. Painfully right. Ryan had spent years convincing himself that night was unfortunate, but understandable. A terrible situation. A difficult choice. A bad moment, but survivable. He told himself Zariah eventually understood. That things returned to normal. That time softened the pain. He had been wrong. Time hadn't healed anything. Time had only buried it. And buried pain had a dangerous way of resurfacing. Ryan's voice felt hollow, broken. I really thought we moved past that. Zariah laughed softly, a painful laugh. Humorless. That's exactly what hurt. Ryan looked at her. She wiped her face slowly. You moved past it. She touched her chest. I carried it. Silence. Heavy. Crushing. Ryan felt shame burn through him, because he finally understood the difference. To him, that night was one terrible decision. To her, that night changed the emotional foundation of their marriage. Zariah walked toward the window. Rain still fell softly outside. Chicago lights blurred through wet glass. Her voice became quieter, reflective. That night at the hospital, she swallowed. I was terrified. Ryan's chest tightened. He said nothing. She continued. I'd been pushing myself too hard. Long hours. Constant pressure. No rest. She shook her head slightly. I ignored every warning sign. Her voice trembled. Then suddenly, everything went black. Flashback. Bright office lights. Voices. Pressure. Zariah standing during a presentation. Then dizziness. Sharp. Unexpected. Her vision blurred. Voices distorted. The floor rushed upward. Darkness. Then, hospital lights. Cold air. Machines. Questions. Fear. Confusion. Alone. Her voice cracked in the present. When I woke up in that hospital bed, tears formed again. I didn't care about tests. I didn't care about the diagnosis. Her hand trembled slightly. I just wanted you. Ryan closed his eyes. Pain surged. Zariah turned to face him. Raw vulnerability in her expression. You were the first person I called. That hit hard, because he knew what came next. She smiled sadly. You know what hurts? Ryan couldn't speak. She answered anyway. I really believed you'd come. Her voice shook. I never doubted it. That broke him. Because there had been no hesitation in her trust. No fear. No question. She believed he would show up. Because that was what husbands do. That was what partners do. That was what love should do. Zariah looked down briefly, then back at him. I sat there for almost 2 hours. Ryan's breathing slowed painfully. She continued. I kept looking at the door every time footsteps passed. Her tears returned. Quiet now. Steady. Every single time. Ryan felt sick, because he could picture it. Too clearly. Her, alone. Waiting. Scared. Trusting him to walk through that door. And he never came. Zariah's voice dropped. When the nurse asked if someone was coming, she swallowed. I said yes. Her lips trembled. I said, my husband is coming. Ryan's chest shattered. Every word felt unbearable. She laughed softly through tears. After a while, her expression hardened slightly. The nurse stopped asking. Silence. Ryan stared at her, completely undone. Zariah's eyes glistened. That's when I realized something. Her voice steadied. Not because pain lessened, because clarity had replaced confusion. She touched her heart. If life ever forced Ryan to choose. She held his gaze. I wasn't first. The words landed like a knife. Ryan shook his head immediately. No. But she cut him off. Please don't. Her voice remained soft, but firm. Don't tell me that's not true. Ryan fell silent. Because what argument existed? What defense remained? None. Zoraya's voice grew quieter. That night changed how I loved you. Ryan felt frozen. She continued. I didn't stop loving you. That mattered, and somehow made everything sadder. I still loved you. Her voice cracked. But I stopped trusting you emotionally. There it was. The real wound. Not lack of love. Loss of emotional safety. Loss of trust. Loss of certainty. Ryan finally understood. That night didn't kill love. It killed security. And once security disappears, love starts protecting itself. Zoraya folded her arms tightly, as if holding together years of pain. I became careful. Ryan's chest tightened. She continued. I stopped depending on you emotionally. I stopped expecting too much. Her laugh was bitter again. I stopped needing too much. Ryan felt tears sting his own eyes now. Because he saw it. All of it. He saw how that one decision reshaped her. Reshaped them. Reshaped the marriage. Not through drama. Not through explosive conflict. Through something quieter, more dangerous. Emotional withdrawal. Zoraya stared at him and asked the question that truly mattered. Do you understand now? Ryan couldn't answer, because understanding came with crushing guilt, and guilt was swallowing him whole. Some wounds heal quickly, others don't. Not because they're impossible to heal, but because they were never truly treated. Ignored wounds don't disappear. They hide beneath daily routines, smiles, responsibilities, and ordinary life. And then one day, they surface, not as fresh pain, but as resentment, distance, silence. Ryan stood in the middle of the bedroom, feeling like the ground beneath him had shifted. Everything Zoraya said had forced him to confront a truth he had spent years avoiding. He had always believed he was a good husband. Not perfect, but good. Responsible, loyal, hard-working, dependable. The kind of man who showed love by providing, by protecting, by carrying burdens quietly. That had always been his definition of love. Work hard, provide stability, handle responsibility, keep everything together. But tonight, Ryan was facing a painful truth. Providing wasn't enough. Being responsible wasn't enough. Because love wasn't only about what you built. It was also about how present you were. Emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and somewhere along the way. He had stopped showing up in the ways that mattered most. Ryan's voice broke. I understand. Zoraya looked at him, really looked at him. She searched his face, trying to decide if he truly understood, or if this was just guilt speaking. Ryan swallowed hard. Tears gathered in his eyes now. Unfamiliar, uncomfortable, but impossible to stop. His voice trembled. No, actually. He shook his head. I'm only beginning to understand. That honesty softened something in Zoraya. Just a little. Ryan ran a hand over his face. Overwhelmed, ashamed, angry at himself. I thought I was doing the right thing. His voice cracked. I thought sacrificing now would give us a better future. He laughed bitterly. Broken. I told myself I was working hard for us. He looked at her, pain naked in his eyes. But I never stopped to ask if I was losing us in the process. Silence. Zoraya's expression shifted. Her anger had faded now. What remained was sadness. Deep sadness. Ryan continued, voice rough, honest. My father used to say something when I was young. Zoraya remained quiet, listening. Ryan stared at the floor. He said a man's worth is measured by what he provides. He gave a bitter smile. He worked non-stop. His jaw tightened. Always busy. Always unavailable. His voice lowered. He paid every bill. He swallowed. But he never knew me. That landed heavily. Zoraya felt something inside her shift. Ryan had rarely spoken about his father. Very rarely. And when he did, it was brief, detached. Tonight was different. Tonight, he was opening wounds he usually kept locked away. Ryan's voice trembled. I hated him for that. His breathing slowed, measured, painful. I hated growing up in a house where everything looked stable on the outside. He looked at her, but felt emotionally empty inside. Zoraya's heart tightened, because that sounded painfully familiar. Ryan laughed bitterly again, a wounded sound. And somehow, he shook his head. I became exactly like him. The sentence broke something in him. His shoulders dropped, like years of emotional weight finally crushed through his defenses. I became the man I swore I'd never be. Zariah stared at him, emotion filling her chest, not because her pain disappeared. It hadn't, but because for the first time in years, she saw him, not the composed, controlled Ryan, not the emotionally guarded husband, but the wounded man beneath all of it. Ryan's voice cracked badly now. I failed you. Silence. Heavy. Raw. Real. His eyes met hers. No walls. No pride. No defense. Only truth. I failed you when you needed me most. Tears finally fell. Ryan didn't stop them, didn't hide them, didn't look away. I broke your trust. His voice shook, and I kept failing you every day after that. He swallowed painfully. Because I never truly faced what I did. Zariah's breathing slowed. This apology felt different. Different from casual regret. Different from guilt. This felt real. Ryan was finally taking full accountability, not just for one night, for everything that followed. Ryan's voice softened, barely above a whisper. I am so sorry, Zariah. Silence. Zariah's eyes filled again. She wanted to speak, but emotions crowded her chest. Too much, too heavy. Ryan continued. I know sorry isn't enough. His voice shook. I know words won't fix this. He inhaled slowly. But I need you to know something. He stepped closer, not too close, giving her space, giving her choice. I never stopped loving you. Tears rolled down Zariah's face. Ryan's voice broke completely. Not for one day. That hurt, because she believed him. And that was part of the tragedy. Love wasn't the issue. Love had never been the issue. The issue was neglect, emotional absence, unhealed pain. Ryan whispered, I just stopped showing it in the ways you needed. Silence. Zariah finally spoke. Her voice was soft, tired, honest. I know you love me. Ryan froze. She wiped her face. That's what made this so painful. Her voice trembled. Because even with love, she touched her heart. I still felt alone. Ryan's chest tightened. She looked directly at him, and spoke the hardest truth of all. Love is important, Ryan. A tear slipped down. But love, without emotional safety, feels exhausting. That truth hit him deeply, because it was true. Love alone couldn't carry a relationship. Not without trust, not without connection, not without emotional presence. Zariah exhaled shakily, then said the words Ryan feared most. I don't know if we can fix this. Ryan's world stopped. Cold fear gripped his chest. Because suddenly, this wasn't just about understanding pain. This was about losing her. Really losing her. And for the first time that night, Ryan felt true panic. There comes a point in every broken relationship when silence is no longer possible. When pain grows too heavy to carry quietly. When every buried emotion demands to be heard. And when that moment comes, things either begin to heal or completely fall apart. Ryan felt his heartbeat slam against his chest. Zariah's words repeated in his mind like an alarm. I don't know if we can fix this. He stared at her. The woman he had loved for nearly a decade. The woman he built a life with. The woman he still loved deeply. And for the first time in years, he saw just how close he was to losing her. Not emotionally, not gradually, completely. The realization terrified him. His voice came out strained, panicked. What do you mean you don't know? Zariah's expression tightened. There it was. Fear. Raw fear. But unlike Ryan's fear of losing her fear came from somewhere deeper. The fear of hoping again, and being disappointed again. She folded her arms tightly. As if protecting herself, Ryan stepped closer, emotion flooding through him. No, Zariah. His voice cracked. Don't say that. She looked at him, eyes full of pain. This is exactly why I stayed quiet for so long. Ryan frowned. What? Her voice sharpened. Because the moment I say how bad things really are. She touched her chest. You panic. Tension rose instantly. Ryan shook his head. What do you expect me to do? Zariah laughed bitterly. A sharp, painful laugh. See? That right there. Ryan's frustration spiked. What are you talking about? Her voice rose. I'm talking about this. She pointed between them. This dynamic. Emotion trembled through her voice. You only react when things are falling apart. Ryan froze. The truth in her words stung. Hard. Zariah stepped forward now, her emotions finally breaking loose. Years of buried pain pouring out. You don't hear me when I'm quietly hurting. Her voice shook. You don't notice when I'm slowly breaking. Tears streamed down. But the second everything reaches crisis mode, she threw up her hands. Now, suddenly, you're paying attention. The words slammed into Ryan, because, deep down, he knew she was right. Painfully right. Zoraya's voice cracked. I begged for connection for years. She shook her head. Years, Ryan. Her breathing grew uneven. I asked for time. I asked for effort. I asked for us. She pressed her hand to her chest. And now that I'm exhausted. Her voice broke completely. Now you're scared. Ryan felt cornered, overwhelmed. His own emotions erupted. That's not fair. The words burst out louder than intended. Zoraya froze. Ryan rarely yelled. The room went silent. Ryan's breathing turned heavy. Frustration and pain spilling over. You think this doesn't hurt me? His voice shook with emotion. You think I wanted this? Tears burned in his eyes. I've been drowning too. Zoraya stared. Ryan's composure shattered completely now. Years of pressure exploded. Years of emotional suppression breaking apart. His voice cracked. I'm tired, Zoraya. He ran his hands through his hair. Agitated, broken, so tired. His chest rose and fell rapidly. I'm tired of carrying everything. That landed. Zoraya's anger faltered. Ryan continued. Messy, raw, unfiltered. I carry pressure every single day. His voice trembled. At work. At home. In my own head. He looked at her. Pain stripped bare. And no matter what I do. His voice dropped. It never feels enough. Silence. Heavy. Ryan's eyes filled with tears. He didn't care anymore. Didn't hide them. Didn't fight them. I feel like I'm failing everywhere. The confession hit hard, because it was brutally honest. Zoraya saw something she hadn't seen in years. Not distance. Not silence. Not emotional walls. She saw a man unraveling. Ryan's voice shook. I wake up every day trying to keep everything from falling apart. He swallowed hard. But inside. He touched his chest. I feel like I'm collapsing. The room fell into stunned silence. Neither moved, neither spoke. Ryan's voice lowered to a whisper. And what came next changed everything. I don't even recognize myself anymore. Zoraya's breath caught. Because that was not something Ryan would normally admit. Ever. His voice cracked again. I don't know how to do this. Tears fell freely now. I don't know how to be what you need. His shoulders dropped completely. Defeat. Pain. Vulnerability. All visible now. And then he said the thing buried deepest of all. The truth underneath everything. The truth driving his silence. The truth shaping his emotional distance. Ryan looked directly at her. Broken. Terrified. And whispered, I'm scared all the time. Zoraya froze. Her entire body stilled. Because in 7 years of marriage, she had never heard Ryan say those words. Not once. Fear changes people. Sometimes loudly. Sometimes quietly. Sometimes it makes people cling tighter. Sometimes it makes them run. And sometimes, fear makes people shut down so completely that even the people who love them most can no longer reach them. Ryan's whispered confession hung in the air. I'm scared all the time. Zoraya stood frozen. Her anger had vanished. Not because her pain disappeared, but because this version of Ryan felt unfamiliar. Raw, honest, unprotected. She had spent years trying to break through his emotional walls. Tonight, for the first time, those walls had finally cracked. And what she found behind them wasn't coldness. It was fear. Deep, overwhelming fear. Ryan wiped his face roughly, embarrassed by the tears, but too exhausted to hide now. His voice trembled. I know how pathetic that sounds. Zoraya shook her head immediately. No. He laughed bitterly. Broken. It does. He stared at the floor, unable to meet her eyes. I'm 37 years old. His voice cracked. I'm supposed to have it together. That sentence hit Zoraya hard, because she recognized it. The pressure. The impossible standard. The burden men often carry in silence. Ryan continued, voice low, heavy. My whole life. He swallowed. I've believed one thing. His jaw tightened. If I stop performing, he finally looked at her. Everything falls apart. Silence. Zoraya's heart tightened painfully. Ryan's voice shook. That's how I grew up. Flashbacks flooded his mind. His father, cold, demanding, Emotionally distant, nothing was ever enough. Straight A's? Expected. Hard work? Required. Emotion? Weakness. Ryan could still hear his father's voice. Sharp. Unforgiving. Nobody cares how you feel. Get the job done. Ryan clenched his jaw, pain flashing across his face. That's what I learned. His breathing grew heavier. You don't complain. You don't break. You don't show weakness. His voice cracked. You just keep going. Zariah felt tears form again, because now she understood something painful. Ryan hadn't only learned emotional distance, he had survived through it. He had built his entire identity around suppressing vulnerability. Ryan's shoulders dropped, completely drained. So, when work got harder, he swallowed. When pressure increased, his voice broke. I did what I've always done. He touched his chest. I shut down. Silence, raw silence. Ryan looked at her. Pain everywhere. I thought I was protecting us. That hurt, because she believed him. He continued. I thought if I worked harder, if I fixed everything, if I carried all the pressure. He shook his head. Then, we'd be okay. Tears filled his eyes again. But, I didn't realize. His voice cracked badly. I was shutting you out. Zariah finally moved. Slowly. Closer. Not too close, but closer. Her voice came soft. Painfully soft. Ryan. He closed his eyes briefly, like hearing gentleness hurt more than anger. Zariah's voice trembled. I understand your fear. Ryan opened his eyes. She held his gaze. And then came her brutal truth. But understanding your pain doesn't erase mine. Silence. The words landed with painful honesty. She stepped closer. Emotion building again. I know you were hurting. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I know you were overwhelmed. Her voice cracked. I know you didn't mean to hurt me. She pressed a trembling hand to her chest. But, Ryan... Emotion tightened her voice. You still hurt me. That truth hit hard. Because it was fair, completely fair. Intent didn't erase impact. Pain caused unintentionally was still pain. Zariah's voice broke. You may not have meant to neglect me. A tear slipped down. But I still felt neglected. You may not have meant to abandon me emotionally. Her voice shook, but I still felt abandoned. Ryan felt every word, every single word. She looked shattered now, raw and vulnerable. And then, she revealed the deepest wound of all, the wound beneath everything else, the wound she had hidden, even from herself. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. Do you know what scared me most? Ryan stood still, listening. Her eyes glistened. After the hospital night. She swallowed. I started becoming someone I didn't recognize. Ryan frowned slightly. Zariah's tears fell steadily. I stopped trusting love. His heart sank. She shook her head. Not dramatically, quietly. Broken. I started expecting disappointment. Her voice cracked. I started preparing myself emotionally for hurt. Ryan felt like his chest was being crushed. Zariah continued. Every word painful, honest. I stopped fully leaning into us. She touched her heart. Because some part of me believed. Her voice shattered. If I needed you again, you might not be there. That broke Ryan completely. He physically staggered back half a step, as if the words carried weight. Because now he understood, really understood. This wasn't just about one missed hospital visit. It was about what that moment taught her. That in moments of real vulnerability, she was alone. Ryan's voice broke. No. But Zariah wasn't finished. Not yet. Years of truth still needed to come out. She looked directly into him, tears falling, and delivered the hardest truth of all. I stopped feeling chosen. Silence. Devastating silence. Those words shattered Ryan. Because deep down, he knew she was right. And suddenly, something terrifying happened. Zariah's expression changed. Not anger. Not sadness. Something worse. Exhaustion. Emotional exhaustion. The kind that comes after fighting for too long. She looked at him. Eyes tired. Voice soft. And said the words Ryan feared most. I don't know how much more of this I can do. Ryan froze. Everything inside him went cold. Because for the first time tonight, he realized this wasn't just about saving the marriage. This was about whether Zariah still had enough left to keep trying. And suddenly, Ryan made a decision. A dangerous one. He turned toward the bedroom door. Zariah's eyes widened. Ryan? He didn't answer. He kept walking. straight toward the door. Before we continue, I want you to pause and think about this. Who do you believe is hurting more right now? Ryan, carrying years of pressure, fear, and emotional suppression? Or Zariah, carrying years of loneliness, disappointment, and emotional neglect? Or do you believe they are both victims of silence? Be honest in the comments. And I want to ask you something deeper. Can love truly survive when emotional safety is broken? If this story is touching you, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and subscribe to Love Stories by Mr. Johnson. Because what happens next may change everything. Sometimes the most important decisions in life happen in silence. No audience, no applause, no warning. Just one moment, one choice, one step, forward or away. Ryan Mitchell walked toward the bedroom door with heavy steps. Each one felt automatic, like his body was moving before his mind could catch up. Behind him, the room was silent, too silent. Zariah stood frozen. Her heartbeat thundered in her chest. Fear spread through her instantly. Not anger, not frustration, fear, because she knew this feeling too well. The moment things became too emotional, too intense, too uncomfortable, Ryan retreated. That had become his pattern. Withdraw, shut down, disappear emotionally. And now, as he walked toward that door, old fears surged violently inside her. Her voice cracked. Ryan? He didn't answer. He kept walking. The distance between him and the door shortened. 3 steps. 2 steps. 1. His hand reached for the knob. And suddenly, the air in the room felt unbearably heavy. Zariah's breathing turned shaky. Her chest tightened painfully. Because if he walked out now, if he left in the middle of this conversation, something inside her would break completely. Her voice shook badly. Please, Ryan froze. His hand remained on the door. Still, motionless. Zariah's tears spilled instantly. She hated how vulnerable she sounded. Hated how desperate that one word felt. But pride no longer mattered. Not tonight. Not now. Her voice broke. Please, don't leave like this. Silence. Ryan's hand tightened on the knob. He closed his eyes. Pain crashing through him. He wasn't trying to leave her. Not exactly. He was trying to breathe. Trying to think. Trying not to drown under the crushing weight of everything he had just heard. Guilt. Shame. Fear. Regret. Panic. All of it hit him at once. Too much. Too fast. His chest felt tight. His thoughts chaotic. Messy. Loud. He couldn't think. Couldn't breathe. Could barely stand. Behind him, Zariah's voice came again. Smaller now. Broken. If you walk out. A painful silence followed. Then, her voice cracked completely. I don't know if we come back from that. Those words froze Ryan. Completely. Because suddenly, this wasn't about needing space. This wasn't about calming down. This wasn't about escaping the intensity. This was bigger. Much bigger. This was a defining moment. A turning point. One choice. Stay, or repeat the same pattern. Ryan's breathing slowed. And then, without warning, a memory slammed into him. Sharp, violent, uninvited. He was 8 years old, standing in the hallway of his childhood home. Small, scared, silent. His parents were arguing again. His mother crying. His father cold, emotionless, distant. Ryan could still hear her voice. Trembling. Broken. Please don't walk away from me again. His father's response? Silence. Cold silence. Then footsteps. Heavy footsteps. Walking away. The front door slamming. Ryan flinched, even in the memory. He remembered everything. His mother collapsing onto the couch. Crying quietly. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just broken. Completely broken. And little Ryan standing there helpless, watching, feeling something powerful burn into him. A promise. A fierce promise. I'll never become him. The memory shattered. Ryan opened his eyes. Breathing uneven. And suddenly, the horrifying truth hit him. Hard. He had become him. Not in every way, but in the way that mattered most. Emotional distance. Withdrawal. Silence. Leaving when things got hard. The exact pattern he hated. The exact pattern he swore to break. And now, here he was. Standing at a door. His wife behind him. Crying. Begging him not to walk away. Just like his mother. Ryan's body went cold. His hand slowly slipped off the doorknob. Tears burned instantly. No. No. He couldn't do this. Not again. Not to her. Not to them. Behind him, Zariah remained frozen. Too afraid to move. Too afraid to speak. Because she didn't know what he would do next. Ryan's shoulders trembled. For the first time in years, he stopped running, stopped retreating, stopped hiding, and finally faced the ugliest truth of all. He had become the very thing he feared most. His voice broke into a whisper, barely audible. "Oh God!" Zariah blinked, confused. Ryan's shoulders shook now, emotion crashing through him. His voice cracked, raw, destroyed. "I became him." Zariah froze. Ryan slowly turned around, and what she saw stole her breath. He was crying, not controlled tears, not quiet tears. He was broken open, years of buried pain pouring out. His eyes met hers, and she saw it. Real vulnerability, real fear, real pain. Ryan looked shattered. His voice broke badly. "I became my father." Silence filled the room, heavy, sacred, life-changing, because in that moment, everything changed. Patterns don't break because we recognize them. They break when we choose differently. That's the hard part. Awareness is painful. But change? Change demands courage, real courage. Because changing means doing what feels unfamiliar, what feels uncomfortable, what feels terrifying. Ryan stood in the middle of the bedroom, completely undone. Tears streamed down his face. His chest rose and fell unevenly. For years he had lived under one dangerous illusion, that as long as he wasn't exactly like his father, he was different. He told himself he was loyal. He provided. He stayed. He didn't abandon his family. So he convinced himself he had escaped that legacy. But tonight shattered that lie, because emotional absence could wound just as deeply as physical absence. And suddenly, Ryan saw the truth with painful clarity. His father had left rooms physically. Ryan had stayed in the room. But emotionally, he had disappeared all the same. The realization crushed him. Zariah stood motionless, watching him, her own tears forgotten for a moment. Because she had never seen Ryan like this. Never. Not once in 7 years of marriage. Not during financial stress. Not during family loss. Not during career setbacks. Ryan always held himself together. Always composed. Always controlled. But now, the man in front of her was stripped bare. No walls. No armor. Just pain. Ryan's voice cracked badly. "I hated him." He laughed bitterly through tears. Broken. "I hated what he did to my mother." His breathing shook. "I hated how invisible he made her feel." His jaw trembled. "I hated how alone she was." Zariah felt her heart ache, because every word mirrored their marriage. Ryan wiped his face, but tears kept falling. He looked at Zariah, eyes full of regret. "And I did the same thing to you." Silence. His voice broke completely. "I made you feel alone." Tears slipped down Zariah's cheeks. Ryan stepped forward, slowly, carefully, not demanding closeness, not expecting comfort, just showing up. Finally, "I'm so sorry." His voice shook. So unbelievably sorry. Zariah's breathing became uneven. Emotion filled the room. Heavy. Raw. Ryan continued. "I can't undo the hospital night." Pain flashed across his face. "I can't undo years of emotional distance." His voice cracked. "I can't erase the pain I caused." He swallowed hard. "But I can do one thing." His eyes locked onto hers. For the first time that night, there was no fear in his gaze, only choice, intentional choice. His voice steadied, not because pain disappeared, because clarity had arrived. "I can stop running." Silence. Powerful silence. Ryan touched his chest. "For the first time in my life." He inhaled shakily. "I want to do something different." His voice softened, terrifyingly honest. "I want to stay." Zariah's breath caught. Ryan stepped closer, still giving space, still respecting her boundaries, but fully present, fully there, not retreating, not hiding, not shutting down, staying. His voice trembled. "I don't know how to fix all of this." He shook his head. "I don't have some perfect speech." A broken laugh escaped him. "I don't even know what I'm doing." That honesty touched something deep in Zariah. Ryan's voice lowered, but every word carried weight. "All I know is this." His eyes glistened. "I love you." Tears rolled down. "I love you enough to stop running." Silence. Zariah felt emotions crash inside her. Pain, love, relief, fear, hope, all at once. Ryan continued, voice shaking. "I know trust is broken." He nodded slowly. "I know emotional safety is broken." His expression softened. And I know sorry isn't enough. He took a slow breath, then said the words she had waited years to hear. I'm ready to do the hard work. Those words landed differently, because they weren't dramatic. They weren't romantic. They were something more important, real. Ryan wasn't promising instant change. He wasn't offering empty words. He was offering effort, commitment, work. And real healing always required work. Zoraya's voice finally returned, soft, unsteady. You mean that? Ryan answered instantly. Yes. No hesitation, no uncertainty, just truth. Searching, listening, feeling, trying to decide whether this moment was real or temporary. Ryan saw the doubt in her eyes and understood. He had earned that doubt. He didn't fight it, didn't demand trust, didn't ask for immediate forgiveness. Instead, he said something that shifted everything. Quietly, honestly. I don't expect you to trust me tonight. Zoraya blinked. Ryan continued. I know I have to earn that. Tears filled her eyes again. Because that mattered. He finally understood. Trust wasn't rebuilt with emotion. It was rebuilt through consistency, through action, through time. Ryan's voice softened. But if there's even a small part of you, he swallowed hard, that still wants to fight for us. Emotion tightened his voice. I'm here. Silence. Deep silence. Zoraya's tears fell freely now, because for the first time in years, she saw something she thought was gone. Her husband. Not the version buried under stress. Not the emotionally absent version. The man she fell in love with. Present, open, choosing her. Finally, and yet, pain still remained, because hope was dangerous, especially after disappointment. Her voice broke. I'm scared. Ryan's expression softened immediately. He nodded. So am I. That simple honesty hit her deeply. No fake confidence, no forced reassurance. Just truth. Two scared people, trying to rebuild something broken, together, and for the first time that night. They weren't standing as opponents. They were standing in the same pain, facing the same brokenness, together, and that changed everything. Healing rarely begins with grand gestures. It begins with honesty, raw honesty, the kind that strips away pride, ego, defense, and fear. The kind that forces two people to stop protecting themselves long enough to truly see each other again. Ryan and Zoraya stood facing one another. The room felt different now. Not lighter, not healed, but different. The anger that had dominated earlier was gone. What remained was something quieter, something more vulnerable. Truth. Painful truth. But truth, nonetheless. The candles still flickered softly around the room. Their warm glow now felt less romantic and more symbolic. Light in darkness. Small, fragile light. But light, nonetheless. Ryan exhaled slowly. His breathing had steadied. The storm inside him hadn't disappeared. But something fundamental had shifted. For the first time in years, he wasn't suppressing, wasn't hiding, wasn't retreating. He was staying, fully, emotionally, present. And that alone felt unfamiliar, terrifying, yet strangely freeing. Zoraya wiped her face gently. Her voice came quiet, tired, honest. I don't even know where to start. Ryan gave a small, sad nod. I know. Silence settled between them again. But this silence no longer felt like distance. It felt like processing, thinking, feeling. Ryan looked at her carefully, really carefully. He noticed the exhaustion in her eyes, the emotional fatigue, the pain of carrying hurt for years. And guilt hit him all over again. How long had she been this tired? How long had she been silently carrying this weight? His voice softened. Tell me everything. Zoraya blinked. Ryan held her gaze. No fear now, only intention. Everything I missed. Emotion tightened his voice. Everything you felt. His eyes glistened, even if it hurts. That landed deeply, because for years, Ryan avoided emotional discomfort. Now he was inviting it, choosing it, because truth mattered more than comfort. Zoraya swallowed hard. Her heart raced. This was dangerous territory, because saying everything meant exposing wounds she had carefully buried, wounds she wasn't sure she was ready to reopen. Her voice trembled. What if you don't like what you hear? Ryan answered quietly. That's not important. She frowned slightly. He continued. What matters is understanding what I failed to see. Silence. Zoraya studied him carefully. She was searching for signs of defensiveness, withdrawal, resistance. But for the first time in years, she saw none. Just openness. So she inhaled slowly, then began. I think... She stopped. Tears formed again. Ryan remained still, present, listening. Zariah tried again. I think the hardest part, her voice cracked, was grieving someone who was still right in front of me. Ryan felt those words like a punch to the chest. His breathing slowed painfully. Zariah continued, voice shaking. I watched you change. She wiped away tears. Slowly, quietly, almost without noticing. Her expression broke. You stopped smiling as much. Ryan lowered his eyes. You stopped laughing. Pain built in her voice. You stopped talking. She touched her chest, and eventually, her voice trembled. You stopped letting me in. Ryan stood motionless. Every word hurt, because every word felt true. Zariah's tears fell freely now. I kept waiting for things to go back to normal. She laughed softly. Broken. I kept telling myself work would calm down. That stress would pass. That we'd find our way back. Her smile faded. But we never did. Silence. Ryan's chest tightened. Zariah continued. Then something changed in me. Her voice lowered. Quieter now. More painful. I stopped reaching. Ryan froze. She stared at him. Pain raw in her eyes. Not because I stopped caring. She shook her head. Because reaching started hurting too much. That truth landed heavily. Because Ryan suddenly understood something devastating. Zariah didn't stop reaching because she stopped loving him. She stopped because repeated disappointment made vulnerability unbearable. Her voice cracked. Every time I reached for you emotionally, a tear rolled down. You felt further away. Ryan felt guilt crash into him again. Zariah whispered. So eventually... Her voice broke completely. I stopped. Silence. Deep silence. Ryan's eyes burned. He finally spoke, barely above a whisper. That must have felt awful. Zariah gave a painful laugh. You have no idea. The words carried no cruelty, only truth. Ryan nodded slowly, accepting that, accepting her pain, accepting his failure. Zariah took a shaky breath, then revealed something even deeper, something she had never said aloud. Not to Ryan, not to anyone. Her voice trembled. Do you know what scared me the most? Ryan stood still, listening. She swallowed hard. Tears gathered again. I started feeling emotionally safer by myself than with my own husband. The sentence shattered him. Completely. Ryan physically felt pain in his chest. Sharp, heavy, crushing. Because he understood what that meant. It meant the marriage had become emotionally unsafe. Not abusive, not toxic, but unsafe in a quieter way. A place where vulnerability no longer felt secure. Zariah's voice cracked. That terrified me. She pressed a trembling hand against her heart. Because I knew something was deeply wrong. Her tears fell steadily. But I didn't know how to fix it alone. Ryan's eyes filled. Because there it was. The deepest truth. She hadn't wanted perfection. She hadn't expected him to fix everything. She simply didn't want to feel alone in the fight. Ryan finally moved. One step closer. Still careful. Still respectful. His voice broke. You shouldn't have had to carry that alone. Zariah's lips trembled. A tear slipped down. No. Her voice cracked. I shouldn't have. Silence. Powerful silence. And then, for the first time that night, Ryan did something different. Something small, but deeply meaningful. He didn't speak, didn't defend, didn't explain. He simply stayed and listened. Fully. Completely. And for Zariah, that changed everything. Because sometimes healing begins not with words, but with finally feeling heard. The way we love as adults is often shaped long before we understand love. By what we saw. By what we survived. By what we lacked. Childhood leaves patterns. Invisible patterns. Patterns that quietly shape what feels safe, what feels dangerous, and what we fear most in relationships. Sometimes two people think they're fighting each other, when in reality, they're both fighting old wounds they never healed. The bedroom remained still. Quiet, but alive with honesty. Ryan and Zariah stood only a few feet apart. Closer. Now. Not physically. Emotionally. Years of silence had cracked open. And beneath the silence lay something much deeper. Old pain. Old wounds. Old fears. He had stopped trying to fix. Stopped trying to control. He was simply listening. Really listening. Zariah wiped her face again. Her tears had slowed, but her voice still carried deep emotion. "There's something I've never told you." Ryan's expression softened. He nodded once. "I'm listening." Zariah swallowed hard. This part felt harder. Because this wasn't just about marriage anymore. This was about her. Her wounds. Her fears. The parts of herself she rarely exposed. Her voice came low. Quiet. "When I was a little girl." She paused. Emotion caught in her throat. Ryan remained still. Patient. Present. She continued. "My parents loved each other." Ryan blinked slightly. That wasn't what he expected. Zariah gave a sad smile. "They really did." Her expression shifted. Pain mixed with memory. "But they fought constantly." Ryan stayed quiet. She looked away briefly. Lost in memory. "Their love was loud." She laughed softly. "Broken. Everything was loud. Love. Pain. Arguments. Apologies." Her eyes grew distant. "I grew up in chaos." Flashback. A younger Zariah sitting on the stairs. Listening. Her parents downstairs. Voices raised. Her mother crying. Her father frustrated. Then silence. Then apologies. Then love again. Then conflict again. A cycle. Over and over. Zariah's voice trembled. One day, they looked deeply in love. The next day, they looked completely broken. She looked at Ryan. "That kind of instability changes you." He nodded slowly, understanding. She touched her chest. "It taught me something dangerous." Her voice cracked. Ryan listened carefully. "It taught me that love can disappear without warning." That truth landed heavily. Zariah's tears returned. Quiet, steady. "So I grew up terrified of emotional instability." She exhaled shakily. "I hated uncertainty." Her voice broke. "I hated emotional distance." She looked directly at him. "Because to me..." Her lips trembled. Distance felt like the beginning of loss. Ryan felt something click into place. A deep realization. Her reactions. Her fears. Her pain. It all made sense now. Emotional distance didn't just hurt Zariah. It triggered deep childhood fear. Fear of loss. Fear of abandonment. Fear of emotional collapse. Zariah's voice softened. "When you started pulling away..." A tear slipped down. It triggered everything. She touched her heart. All those old fears came back. Ryan's chest tightened painfully. She continued. "I wasn't just reacting to you." Her voice cracked. "I was reacting to every fear I carried." Silence. Powerful silence. Zariah whispered, "I was terrified of losing you." Those words broke something inside Ryan. Because beneath all the frustration, all the pain, all the conflict, there was love. Deep love. Fear-driven love. But love, nonetheless. Ryan's eyes filled with tears again. Because now, it was his turn. His truth. His wound. His fear. The thing buried deepest inside him. He inhaled slowly, then spoke. Quietly. "My father taught me something too." Zariah looked at him. Fully present. Ryan's voice came rough. "He taught me emotions were dangerous." Silence. He stared at the floor. Pain moving through him. "If you showed emotion..." His jaw tightened. "You were weak. If you struggled..." He laughed bitterly. "You handled it alone." His breathing slowed. Measured. Painful. "If life hurt..." He looked at her. "You buried it." Tears filled his eyes. And eventually... His voice cracked. That became automatic. Zariah's heart ached. Ryan touched his chest. "When stress hits... when pressure builds..." His voice broke. "I disappear inside myself." There it was. The truth. Simple. Painful. Honest. Ryan finally understood his own pattern. Not just intellectually. Emotionally. His shutdown wasn't because he didn't care. It was survival. A deeply learned survival mechanism. Ryan looked at her. Eyes full of regret. "So when you needed more connection..." His voice trembled. "I moved in the opposite direction." Zariah felt tears return. Ryan's voice broke completely. "And the more disconnected you felt..." His breathing shook. "The more overwhelmed I felt." He swallowed hard. "And the more overwhelmed I felt..." His voice dropped. "The more I shut down." Silence. Then realization. Shared realization. Both of them saw it. The cycle. The painful cycle. Zariah feared emotional distance. Ryan responded to pressure by creating emotional distance. The more she reached, the more he withdrew. The more he withdrew, the more she panicked. The more she panicked, the more overwhelmed he became. round and round, pain feeding pain, fear feeding fear, until love became buried under misunderstanding. Zariah whispered, "We were triggering each other." Ryan nodded slowly, pain in his expression. "Yes," she exhaled shakily, tears slipping down. Neither of them were villains. Neither of them were monsters. They were wounded people. People who loved each other, but loved through unhealed pain. And suddenly, the problem looked different. This wasn't just about blame. It was about healing. Real healing. Zariah looked at Ryan, eyes soft, tired, honest. "I still love you." Ryan froze. Her voice cracked. "That's what makes this so hard." His eyes filled. Zariah took a shaky breath, then said the words that changed everything. "But love isn't enough anymore." Silence. Ryan's chest tightened, because he understood exactly what she meant. Love alone couldn't fix this. Not anymore. They needed something deeper. Healing, change, work, real work. And for the first time, they both knew it. Some apologies are easy. They come quickly, lightly, almost automatically. "I'm sorry." 2 simple words. Words people say every day. But real apologies carry weight. They cost something. They require honesty, humility, accountability, and most importantly, change. Because without change, apologies become empty sounds, nothing more. Ryan stood still, Zariah's words echoing through him. Love isn't enough anymore. The truth of that settled heavily in the room, but strangely, it didn't feel hopeless. Painful? Yes. Terrifying? Absolutely. But hopeless? No. Because for the first time in years, both of them were finally looking at the real problem. Not just the symptoms, not just the arguments, the actual wound, the patterns, the fears, the unhealed pain. Ryan slowly nodded. His voice came quiet. Honest. "You're right." Zariah blinked slightly. Ryan held her gaze. No defensiveness, no resistance, just truth. "Love isn't enough." He swallowed, pain visible in his face. "Not if I keep loving you through broken patterns." Silence. His voice softened. "Not if I keep hurting you the same way." That landed deeply, because that was exactly it. Love without growth becomes painful. Love without healing becomes exhausting. Ryan inhaled slowly, then did something Zariah hadn't expected. He sat down, not because he was tired, because he wanted to lower himself, to remove the emotional distance between them, to stop standing over the conversation. He sat on the edge of the chair near the bed and looked up at her. Present, grounded, intentional. His voice came low, steady. "I need to apologize properly." Zariah's heart tightened. Ryan continued. "No rushing, no shortcuts. Every word deliberate. I'm sorry for the hospital night." His voice cracked. "But not just because I wasn't there." He swallowed hard. "I'm sorry because I broke your trust." Zariah's eyes filled again. Ryan continued. "I'm sorry because I made you feel alone in one of your scariest moments." His jaw tightened. Emotion heavy. "I'm sorry because I made you question whether you could depend on me emotionally." Tears rolled down Zariah's cheeks. Ryan's voice trembled. "And I'm sorry because, instead of facing what I did..." He shook his head. "I buried it." Silence. Deep silence. Ryan looked devastated, completely stripped of pride. "I let you carry pain I helped create." His voice cracked badly. "Alone?" Zariah pressed her lips together, trying to hold herself together. Ryan's words felt different, because he wasn't apologizing vaguely. He wasn't saying sorry just to stop conflict. He understood the wound. He understood the impact. And that mattered. Ryan took a shaky breath, then continued. "I'm sorry for every time I shut down instead of letting you in." His eyes glistened. "I'm sorry for every conversation I avoided. For every time you reached for me emotionally, and I withdrew." His voice dropped. "I'm sorry for making you feel unwanted." That one broke Zariah. Fresh tears spilled. Ryan's expression twisted with pain, because he hated that truth, hated that his actions made her feel that way. He continued, voice raw. "I'm sorry for every small moment I made you feel like you came second." Silence. Then, the hardest apology, the one that mattered most. Ryan's voice broke completely. "I'm sorry for making you feel emotionally unsafe with me." The room went still. That sentence carried enormous weight, because it named the deepest wound. Not distance, not arguments, not neglect. Safety, emotional safety, trust, security. Ryan finally understood. And because he understood, his apology carried real weight. Tears streamed down Zariah's face. Because this was what she had waited years for. Not perfection. Not grand romance. Understanding. Real understanding. Ryan looked at her. His voice softened. But I need to be honest too. Zariah remained still, listening. Ryan's expression grew serious. This apology means nothing. He touched his chest. If I stay the same. That truth landed heavily. Because it was true. Words were not enough. They never would be. Ryan continued. I can't promise perfection. He gave a small, sad smile. I clearly don't have that to offer. A faint, emotional laugh escaped Zariah through tears. Ryan's expression softened, but his voice remained firm. I can promise effort. His eyes locked onto hers. Real conviction now. I can promise accountability. He swallowed. I can promise change. Silence. Powerful silence. Ryan's voice lowered. But not empty change. He shook his head. Real work. His expression turned serious. The uncomfortable kind. That mattered. Because healing required more than good intentions. It required intentional effort. Consistent effort. Ryan took a slow breath. Then asked the question both had been avoiding. The question that would decide everything. His voice was barely above a whisper. What do you need from me now? Zariah froze. Emotion filled her chest. Because that question changed everything. Not, how do I fix this quickly? Not, what do you want me to say? Not, can we move on? But, what do you need? He was finally centering her emotional reality. And that mattered more than he knew. Zariah's tears slowed. Her breathing steadied. She looked at him. Really looked at him. And for the first time in years, she felt something fragile begin to return. Hope. Small. Fragile. Dangerous. But real. Still, one painful truth remained. Trust wasn't rebuilt through one conversation. No matter how powerful. No matter how honest. Trust required time. And Zariah needed Ryan to understand that. Completely. Love can survive pain. It can survive disappointment. It can even survive broken trust. But only if both people are willing to do the work. Real work. Not temporary effort driven by fear. Not emotional promises made in crisis. Not words spoken in vulnerable moments. Real work is different. Real work is consistent. It shows up on ordinary days. Quiet days. Difficult days. Days when emotions are not intense. Because true change isn't proven in emotional moments. It's proven in daily choices. Ryan's question still lingered in the air. What do you need from me now? Zariah stood still. Her heart felt heavy, but clearer. That question mattered, more than Ryan realized. Because for years she had felt like her emotional needs lived in the background. Secondary, overlooked. Now he was asking, really asking. And she needed to answer honestly. Even if honesty felt difficult. Even if the truth was uncomfortable. Her voice came soft. Careful. I need honesty. Ryan nodded slowly. Listening. Zariah continued. I need consistency. A tear rolled down. I need emotional presence. Her voice trembled slightly. I need to feel safe enough to be vulnerable with you again. Silence. Ryan absorbed every word. Carefully. Intentionally. Zariah's voice grew stronger. Not angry. Clear. Steady. And most importantly. She held his gaze. I need to know this version of you doesn't disappear tomorrow. That landed heavily, because that fear was real. Very real. Crisis often creates emotional breakthroughs, but many breakthroughs disappear once emotions settle. Zariah feared that. She feared waking up tomorrow, and finding the old Ryan again. Closed off. Silent. Emotionally distant. Her voice cracked. I can't survive false hope. Ryan felt that deeply, because she wasn't asking for perfection. She was asking for consistency. For emotional reliability, for safety, and he understood why. Zariah swallowed hard, then revealed another painful truth. I also need us to stop pretending we can fix this alone. Ryan frowned slightly. She continued. Years of emotional wisdom now shaping her words. We love each other. She touched her chest. That's obvious. A sad smile touched her lips. But love didn't stop us from getting here. Silence. Powerful silence. She continued. Love isn't our problem. Ryan felt something shift, because she was right. Love had never been absent. The issue was deeper. Patterns, trauma, emotional habits, unhealed wounds. Zariah's voice softened. We need help. Ryan froze, just slightly. She saw it. That subtle tension, the instinctive resistance, not anger, discomfort, because for Ryan, those words carried weight. Help, therapy, support, vulnerability, things his old mindset resisted. Zoraya's expression softened. She knew what he was feeling. She spoke gently. This is bigger than one conversation. Ryan remained silent. She continued. We have years of pain to unpack. Her voice cracked. Years of habits to unlearn. She held his gaze. We need tools we don't currently have. That truth sat heavily between them. Ryan looked down, thinking, processing. Every old belief inside him stirred. The belief that strong people handle things alone. The belief that needing help meant weakness. The belief his father had drilled into him. Handle it yourself, always. But tonight had changed something. Because handling things alone had nearly cost him everything. His marriage, his wife, the life he loved. Ryan slowly lifted his gaze. His voice came low. Honest. Therapy scares me. Zoraya's expression softened even more. Because that honesty mattered. Ryan continued. It scares me because... He swallowed. I don't know how to do this. He laughed softly. Broken. I don't even know how to talk about half of what I feel. Zoraya's eyes filled. Ryan touched his chest. But you're right. Silence. He exhaled slowly. Then said the words that changed everything. We need help. Zoraya's breath caught. Ryan nodded once. Firmly. Conviction growing. Yes. Emotion thickened his voice. We need help. Not resistance. Not avoidance. Acceptance. Choice. Growth. Ryan's eyes held hers. For the first time in my life. His voice softened. I'm ready to stop pretending I can carry everything alone. Tears slipped down Zoraya's cheeks. Because that was huge. Massive. For a man like Ryan, those words were transformational. Ryan continued. I want to learn. His voice shook. I want to understand myself better. He swallowed hard. I want to understand you better. Then, the most powerful truth of all. I want to love you better. That broke something open inside Zoraya. Not because pain vanished. It hadn't. But because hope felt more real now. Not fantasy. Not wishful thinking. Real hope rooted in effort. In truth. In change. Zoraya finally moved. Slowly. Carefully. She stepped closer. Ryan remained still. Respectful. Patient. She stood directly in front of him now. Close enough to see every emotion in his eyes. Fear. Hope. Regret. Love. She studied him carefully. Then spoke softly. This won't be easy. Ryan nodded immediately. I know. Her voice trembled. I'm still hurt. I'm still scared. Ryan nodded again. I know. Tears gathered again in her eyes. And trust won't come back overnight. His voice softened. I know. Silence. Then, the moment both had been moving toward, Zoraya inhaled shakily, then whispered, but I'm willing to try. Ryan froze. His breath caught. Emotion crashed through him. Relief. Gratitude. Love. Humility. Zoraya's voice broke. One condition. Ryan's voice shook. Anything. Her eyes held his. Clear. Steady. Honest. No more silence. The words landed with enormous weight, because silence had nearly destroyed them. Ryan felt tears rise again. He nodded. Slowly. Intentionally. No more silence. A promise. Simple. Powerful. Life-changing. And for the first time that night, they weren't choosing comfort. They were choosing effort. And that changed everything. Healing is rarely dramatic. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't arrive in one emotional conversation, and it definitely doesn't happen in a straight line. Healing is messy, slow, uncomfortable, sometimes painful, sometimes beautiful. Most of all, healing is built through small, consistent choices, daily choices. Because trust isn't rebuilt in grand moments. It's rebuilt in ordinary ones. The night of Ryan's birthday changed everything. Not because all their problems disappeared. Not because love magically fixed years of pain. But because something fundamental shifted. Silence ended. The very next week, Ryan and Zoraya sat together in a therapist's office. Neither of them looked comfortable. The office felt warm, calm, safe, soft lighting, bookshelves, neutral colors, nothing intimidating. Yet Ryan still felt tense. His shoulders were stiff, hands clasped tightly, jaw tight. Zoraya noticed. Of course she noticed. This was hard for him. Very hard. She didn't push, didn't pressure. She simply sat beside him. Present, Dr. Elena Brooks smiled warmly from across the room. I'm glad you're both here. Ryan shifted slightly, still uncomfortable, still guarded. Dr. Elena Brooks continued, that alone says something important. She looked at both of them. It says, despite the pain. Her voice remained calm. You both still care. Silence. Ryan looked down. Zariah exhaled slowly. The session began gently. Questions, simple ones at first. How long had they been married? 7 years. How long had they felt disconnected? Longer than either wanted to admit. What brought them here now? That question changed the room. Zariah answered first, quietly. Honestly, we stopped feeling emotionally safe together. Dr. Elena Brooks nodded thoughtfully, then turned to Ryan. And how would you describe what happened? Ryan swallowed. This was hard. Talking about emotions still felt unnatural. Exposing. But he had made a promise. No more silence. His voice came low. I shut down. Silence. Dr. Elena Brooks nodded gently. What happens when you shut down? Ryan stared at the floor, thinking, searching, then answered honestly. It feels like everything gets too loud. Zariah looked at him, listening. Ryan continued. My thoughts. My stress. Expectations. His jaw tightened. I feel overwhelmed. He touched his chest. So I pull inward. Dr. Elena Brooks asked softly. What are you protecting yourself from? The question froze Ryan. His chest tightened. Because that question reached deeper than expected. What was he protecting himself from? Failure, judgment, pain, weakness, disappointment. The answer came slowly, painfully. His voice cracked. Not being enough. Silence filled the room. Heavy, real. Zariah's heart tightened, because she had never heard him say that so plainly. Ryan stared ahead, emotion slowly surfacing. I think, he swallowed hard. I'm scared that if I fail, his voice dropped. Everything falls apart. Dr. Elena Brooks nodded slowly. And what happens when that fear takes over? Ryan answered quietly. I'd disappear. Silence. The truth hung there. Simple, powerful. Dr. Elena Brooks turned to Zariah. And what happens inside you when Ryan disappears emotionally? Zariah's throat tightened. Her answer came immediately. I panic. Ryan looked at her. She continued. It feels like abandonment. Her voice shook slightly. It triggers every fear I have. She touched her chest. Fear of losing connection. Fear of emotional instability. Dr. Elena Brooks leaned back slightly, then said something that changed how both of them saw everything. You're not enemies. Silence. She looked at them carefully. You're trapped in a cycle. Ryan and Zariah listened, fully focused. Dr. Elena Brooks continued. When Ryan feels pressure, he shuts down. She turned to Zariah. When he shuts down, your abandonment fear activates. Then back to Ryan. When her fear activates, she reaches harder. Ryan felt realization building. Dr. Elena Brooks continued. And when emotional intensity increases, Ryan whispered, I shut down more. She nodded. Yes. Silence. Then, the final truth. This cycle protects neither of you. Her voice softened. It only protects your wounds. That landed deeply, because it was true. Neither of them were intentionally hurting each other. They were reacting from pain, from fear, from survival. Dr. Elena Brooks smiled gently. The good news? Ryan and Zariah looked at her. She continued. Cycles can be broken. Hope stirred. Small, fragile, but real. Dr. Elena Brooks leaned forward slightly. But both of you must learn something difficult. Silence. What your partner needs most. She paused. May feel unnatural to you. Ryan frowned slightly. Zariah listened carefully. Dr. Elena Brooks turned to Ryan. When stress rises, every instinct tells you to withdraw. He nodded. She continued. But Zariah needs connection. Then, to Zariah. When Ryan withdraws, every instinct tells you to pursue harder. She nodded. Dr. Elena Brooks smiled gently. But Ryan needs emotional safety to stay open. Silence. The challenge became clear. Growth required both of them to move against instinct, against survival patterns, towards something healthier, something intentional. And that work had only just begun. Trust doesn't return in dramatic moments. It returns quietly, in consistency, in follow-through, in repeated proof that things are truly changing. And perhaps the hardest truth of all, trust returns slowly. Pain can break trust in a moment. But rebuilding it? That takes time. A lot of time. Weeks passed. Then months. Healing didn't happen all at once. There were no magical transformations. No overnight miracles. Ryan and Zariah still had difficult days. Still had uncomfortable conversations. Still stumbled. Still got triggered. But something was different now. They were no longer avoiding the work. They were doing it. Together. And that changed everything. The first signs of change were small. Almost easy to miss. But meaningful. Very meaningful. Ryan started checking in more intentionally. Not casually. Not mechanically. Genuinely. One evening after work, he walked into the kitchen and found Zariah making dinner. Before therapy, he might have gone upstairs first. Changed clothes. Checked email. Disconnected. This time, he did something different. He walked directly to her. No distractions. No phone. No mental distance. And asked softly, "How was your day?" Zariah looked up. A simple question. Yet something about the way he asked felt different. Present. Focused. Intentional. She studied his face. He meant it. Really meant it. Her voice came cautiously. It was stressful. Ryan stayed. Listening. Not fixing. Not rushing. Just listening. That mattered. More than words could explain. Another small moment came weeks later. Ryan had an awful day at work. A major client issue. Pressure. Stress. Old Ryan would have come home withdrawn. Quiet. Emotionally gone. Instead, he paused in the driveway. Hands gripping the steering wheel. Heart racing. Every instinct screamed, "Shut down! Retreat! Disappear!" But then he remembered Dr. Elena Brooks's words. Move against instinct. Ryan exhaled shakily, then walked inside. Zariah noticed immediately. She saw the stress in his face, the tension in his shoulders. Before therapy, her fear would activate instantly. She would push, question, demand emotional closeness immediately. But she was learning too. She was learning emotional safety mattered. She moved toward him slowly, gentle, calm, her voice soft. "Tough day?" Ryan nodded, just once. Zariah held his gaze, then said something simple, something intentional. "I'm here." Silence. Ryan felt emotion rise unexpectedly, because there was no pressure in her voice, no demand, no panic, just presence, safety, and for the first time in years. Ryan didn't shut down. He exhaled shakily, then whispered, "Yeah." His voice cracked slightly. "Really tough day." That moment mattered, massively, because it was small, but powerful. He stayed open. She stayed grounded. The cycle weakened, little by little. Trust returned in moments like that. Small moments, ordinary moments, meaningful moments. But healing wasn't perfect, not even close. 3 months into therapy, they had their first major setback. It started small. A Friday evening. Ryan promised he'd be home by 7. 7 came. No Ryan. 7:15. Still nothing. 7:30. No text. No call. And suddenly, Zariah felt it. That familiar fear. Sharp, cold, unwelcome. Her chest tightened. Her thoughts spiraled. Old pain resurfaced instantly. Disappointment, abandonment, the hospital memory, all of it. By the time Ryan rushed in at 7:42 p.m., breathless and apologetic, Zariah's walls were already up. Ryan frowned immediately. He saw it. Her expression, closed, guarded, hurt. He swallowed. "I'm sorry." Zariah folded her arms. Silence. Ryan's heart sank. He knew. He had triggered something. His old instinct whispered, "Defend yourself. Explain. Minimize." But therapy had changed him. He took a slow breath, then said carefully, "I know this isn't just about being late." Zariah froze. Ryan held her gaze. Emotion visible. Honesty. Presence. He continued. This triggered something deeper. Silence. Zariah's eyes filled with tears. Because, yes, that was exactly it. Ryan stepped closer. Voice soft. Steady. "I should have called." No excuses. No defensiveness. Just accountability. That mattered. Deeply. Tears slipped down Zariah's face. Her voice cracked. "When you disappeared." She touched her chest. It felt like before. Ryan's heart tightened painfully. He nodded. Listening. Present. No silence. No withdrawal. Just staying. Zariah cried quietly now. I hated how fast fear came back. Ryan stepped closer. Still gentle. Still careful. His voice softened. "I understand." Then, The moment that showed real growth. Ryan said the words old Ryan never would have said. I'm sorry my actions made you feel unsafe again. Zariah broke. Fresh tears spilled. Because he understood. Really understood. He wasn't defending intention. He was acknowledging impact. Huge difference. Ryan's voice shook slightly. But I'm here. He held her gaze. I'm not disappearing. Silence. Then something beautiful happened. Instead of spiraling into old patterns, they stayed. They talked. They worked through it, together. And that moment mattered more than perfection ever could. Because healing wasn't about never getting triggered again. Healing was about responding differently when triggers happened. And slowly, very slowly, trust returned. Not perfectly, not instantly, but genuinely. One intentional moment at a time. Real change is rarely loud. It doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes you only notice it when life gives you a familiar moment. And you realize you respond differently. You feel differently. You love differently. That's when you understand healing happened. Not perfectly, but genuinely. 1 year later, Chicago. Rain tapped softly against the windows of Ryan Mitchell's office. A strange coincidence. Same season, same weather, same birthday. Ryan sat at his desk staring at the city skyline. 38. He smiled softly to himself. A year ago, birthdays felt heavy, lonely, painful, a reminder of everything broken inside his marriage. But today felt different. Not perfect. Life still had stress. Work still had pressure. Therapy had not erased every struggle. Ryan and Zariah still had difficult moments, still had uncomfortable conversations, still got triggered sometimes, but they handled things differently now. They talked, they checked in, they repaired, they chose each other, daily, intentionally. That changed everything. Ryan glanced at his phone. 3 unread messages. His sister, Claire, his mother, a college friend. Then his eyes landed on one message, and immediately warmth spread through his chest. Zariah. He opened it. A simple message, short, but deeply meaningful. Happy birthday, handsome, come home soon. I miss you. Ryan smiled, a real smile. Warm, alive, not forced, not tired, just genuine. That alone said everything. A year ago, that simple message would have felt impossible. Now, it felt beautifully ordinary. And ordinary had become sacred. Because peace in love often lives in ordinary moments. Ryan picked up his coat and headed out. The drive home felt strangely familiar. Rain, city lights, wet streets. But internally, everything felt different. A year ago, driving home filled him with heaviness. Tonight, he felt something else. Peace. Not because life became easy. Because he was no longer carrying everything alone. He had changed. Therapy changed him. Love changed him. Hard truth changed him. He had learned something powerful. Strength wasn't emotional suppression. Strength wasn't carrying pain alone. Strength was vulnerability, presence, honesty, connection. He had learned how to communicate, how to stay present under stress, how to speak before shutting down, how to let himself be seen. And Zariah had changed too. She learned how to respond without panic, how to communicate fear without accusation, how to create safety instead of escalating tension. Together, they built something healthier, not perfect, healthy. That mattered more. Ryan pulled into the driveway. Rain softened into a light drizzle. He sat in the car for a moment, looking at the house. House, same warm lights, same front door. Yet somehow, it felt completely different, because home felt like home again. Ryan smiled softly, then stepped out. Cold air greeted him. He walked toward the front door, unlocked it, and stepped inside. Immediately, something felt different. He heard it first. Laughter. Warm laughter. Bright, familiar, alive. Ryan froze, then smiled. Zariah's laughter. His chest warmed instantly. God, how much he had missed that sound. Real laughter. Not polite smiles. Not forced moments. Joy. Ryan closed the door quietly and listened. The laughter came from upstairs, followed by soft music. Then footsteps. Quick footsteps. Then Zariah appeared at the top of the stairs. Ryan looked up and completely froze. Not from shock this time, from awe. She looked stunning, absolutely breathtaking, wearing a beautiful fitted dress, hair glowing in soft light, confidence radiating from her. But what caught him most was her face, her smile, warm, bright, alive. And then She looked at him with that familiar fire in her eyes. That same fire from 1 year ago, but different now. Last year, that fire held pain, fear, desperation. Tonight, it held love, confidence, peace, joy. She smiled, and Ryan felt his heart completely surrender. Happy birthday. Her voice was warm, soft, full of affection. Ryan laughed softly, overwhelmed, emotional. You're trying to kill me? Zariah laughed, bright and beautiful. And just like that, the sound filled the house with life. Ryan felt something deep in his chest loosen. Peace, real peace. Zariah walked down the stairs slowly, eyes never leaving his. Ryan stood completely still, watching her, admiring her, grateful, so deeply grateful. When she reached him, silence settled, but unlike before, this silence felt beautiful, safe, warm. She looked into his eyes, then smiled softly. What? Ryan swallowed, emotion rising unexpectedly. His voice came low. Honest, you're beautiful. Zariah's smile softened. Thank you. Ryan stared at her, then whispered, No. Emotion thickened his voice. I mean, really beautiful. Tears suddenly burned behind his eyes. Because this moment felt bigger than a birthday, bigger than romance. It felt like survival, like grace, like getting a second chance he didn't deserve. Ryan's voice shook. I almost lost this. Zariah's expression softened instantly, deep emotion filling her eyes. She stepped closer, very close, then gently placed her hand against his chest, over his heart, warm, steady, present, and softly said, But you didn't. Ryan's breath caught. Emotion crashed into him. Love, gratitude, relief, humility, and, he knew, the final healing conversation was about to happen. Love rarely survives because of feelings alone. Feelings matter. Of course they do. Love begins with feelings, but lasting love, real love, it survives through choice. Daily choice, intentional choice, the difficult choice to stay present, to communicate, to listen, to apologize, to grow, to choose each other again and again. Ryan stood in the warmth of their home, Zariah's hand resting gently against his chest, over his heart, steady, present, real. 1 year ago, this house had held tension, silence, pain. Tonight, it held something entirely different. Peace. Not perfect peace. Not effortless peace. Earned peace. The kind built through difficult conversations, accountability, and daily effort. Ryan looked into Zariah's eyes, still overwhelmed, still emotional. He covered her hand with his. Warmth spread through him. His voice came low, soft. You have no idea how grateful I am. Zariah smiled gently, emotion shining in her eyes. Ryan swallowed, his throat tightened. 1 year ago. He laughed softly, shaken by the memory. I thought I was walking into a normal birthday. Zariah smiled knowingly. Ryan shook his head. I had no idea my whole life was about to change. Silence, beautiful silence. Zariah's voice came soft. Ours. Ryan blinked. She smiled. It changed both of us. He nodded slowly. She was right. This wasn't just his transformation. It was theirs. They both changed. They both healed. They both chose growth. Ryan's voice shook slightly. You saved us. Zariah's expression changed instantly. She shook her head. No. Firm, certain. Ryan frowned slightly. She stepped closer, her voice gentle, but important. I didn't save us, Ryan. She held his gaze. We saved us. Those words settled deeply, because they were true. Healing required both of them. Her courage to speak, his courage to stay, her willingness to trust again, his willingness to change. Both mattered. Ryan's eyes filled again. He smiled softly, then laughed. You know, Zariah raised an eyebrow. What? Ryan's smile widened slightly. I'll never look at birthdays the same again. She laughed. Warm, bright. God, he loved that sound. He loved her. Not in the shallow, effortless way people romanticized. He loved her in a deeper way now. A more mature way. A more intentional way. Because love after healing feels different. Stronger. Softer. More honest. Ryan's expression softened. Then he said quietly, Thank you. Zariah tilted her head. For what? Ryan's voice cracked slightly. For not giving up. Silence. Emotion filled the space. Zariah's eyes glistened. She smiled softly, then answered with words that carried enormous meaning. Thank you for staying. Ryan froze. Emotions surged instantly, because that sentence carried history. 1 year ago, standing at that bedroom door, he almost walked away, almost repeated the pattern, almost became his father, completely. But he stayed. And staying changed everything. Ryan leaned forward slowly, resting his forehead gently against hers. Eyes closed. Emotion steady and warm. His voice came barely above a whisper. That was the hardest decision of my life. Zariah's hand remained over his heart. Her voice came soft. And the best one. Silence. Warm. Sacred. Then Zariah pulled back slightly. Her smile returned. Playful now. Light. What? She laughed softly. You're getting emotional again. Ryan laughed. Real laughter. The kind that came easily now. And that alone felt like healing. He looked at her. Love in every part of his expression. Then he said something simple, but deeply true. I choose you. Zariah's breath caught. Tears filled her eyes instantly. Ryan's voice remained steady. Intentional. Not just tonight. He held her gaze. Every day. Emotion thickened his voice. Even on hard days. Even on messy days. Even on imperfect days. His eyes softened. I choose you. Tears slipped down Zariah's cheeks. Not from pain. From love. From healing. From relief. She smiled through tears. Then whispered, I choose you too. Ryan kissed her forehead gently. Slowly. Tenderly. With deep affection. No desperation. No fear. Just love. Mature. Intentional. Steady. And in that moment, both understood the most important lesson of their journey. Love rarely dies in dramatic moments. It fades in small choices, small silences, small neglect, small emotional absences. But love survives the exact same way. Through small choices, daily choices, intentional choices. Choosing honesty over silence. Choosing vulnerability over pride. Choosing effort over comfort. Choosing connection over withdrawal. That was the lesson. That was the truth. And that was what saved them. Ryan looked around their home, then back at Zariah. Warmth filled his chest. Home finally felt like home again. Not because life was perfect, but because love was alive, healthy, honest, and real. This wasn't a fairy tale ending. Because real love doesn't promise perfection. Real love promises effort. And sometimes, that's even more beautiful. Before you go, I want to hear from you. What was the biggest lesson you learned from Ryan and Zariah's story? Was it about communication, emotional safety, healing childhood wounds, or choosing love intentionally every single day? Comment below. I read every comment, and I'd truly love to hear your thoughts. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this message, and subscribe to Love Stories by Mr. Johnson for more powerful love stories filled with real-life lessons. And always remember this. Love rarely dies in one big moment. It fades in small silences, small neglect, and small emotional distance. But love can also be rebuilt. One honest conversation, one intentional action, and one loving choice at a time. See you in the next story.